Yeah, man. All right. Yeah, this is fun. I haven't been back here in a while. Some people were trying to remind me of when I was last here. We were looking through calendars. It was like 2014 or 2015, thereabouts. How many people have seen me speak before, here or elsewhere? All right, that's like part of the room. That's pretty cool. So how many have not? Okay, so there will be some new information. My talks are always evolving, and there's reuse of some important stuff that I think always deserves to be mentioned, and then new things to keep it fresh. And this will be sort of a split of tools and tactics and things that you should understand, so you take away some actionable knowledge. And then it's story time, where we have a whole choose your own adventure of a series of job stories and tales from the field. So it's audience participation with show of hands on which ones you want to hear. But for those who didn't put any hands up saying you don't know who I am or what I do, I mean, I have letters and things regarding my career in physical security, but ultimately I am the guy who pretends to be a bad guy. And I walk around the world, even when I'm not on a job, looking at the world with bad eyes, as it were. If I'm, like, this was an actual story. There was a meeting I was taking with some clients. I went into town, and I was like, okay, take some public transit to, get down to their offices downtown. And on the way to the meeting, I'm looking at people on this train, and I'm like, okay, well, I can see badges on them. I can see where these people work. I can see what credential technologies they are using in many instances, so I know what access control systems are on the buildings. This is just kind of how my brain is. I'm like, oh, I can clone that, I could clone that, okay. I get off the train, leave the station, walking down a street, and I see a locked up, gate just outside of some park. And, this is near the offices. This is not the client building, but I'm getting close. And I say, oh, combination padlock. And as I and a few other, how many people know, you can decode this padlock with no tools at all. We do, you do this in class with us. You can look like a person who's just, oh, I'm just operating this padlock. And from 5 feet away, you don't realize that someone maybe doesn't belong there. I could break in whatever this property is. But that's not where I'm going. Where I'm going is this property. I get to the client building, the meeting was there, and before I even contact anybody, the first thing my brain does, I just start looking down everything I see. I'm like, okay, well, I know what kind of intercom system this is. I know what kind of key box this is here. There's another key box. I can look at their access control system. I know, again, what credential technology they're using. I know who their integrator is, because that's a key scan logo. So again, if I was to break into this building and someone's like, what are you doing here? Well, I'm here from Keyscan. I'm troubleshooting some things. And that'll click because, well, all right, that's our integrator. You must be from Keyscan. So I can look like I belong there if I want to break into this place. This is just how my mind is. And I'm, kind of speak with my contact on the phone. And they say, yeah, we'll come down in a minute. We'll be right there. We'll let you in. And come around to the north side of the building. That's where I'll come down in the elevator and get you. And I walk around the corner. And again, I'm looking at this. And I can tell you exactly what this exit hardware is on this door. It's made by Assa Abloy. It's called their Rockwood style of hardware, if you're curious. It's got a very, very minimal amount of throw, very minimal movement to trigger the release of those door bolts. And as I'm waiting for my contact to come downstairs, I just kind of look around, and there's like a trash can near the corner. And I look over there, and there's a busted up umbrella in the trash can. I'm like, well, if my client wasn't here, I could probably just strip this umbrella apart and make a tool and pop this door open, again, instantly, because that's how I see things. They let me in, because I'm trying not to break in, right? Don't crap where you eat. Taking a meeting with these people, trying to be polite. They come out, all right, they let me inside. All right, well, come on upstairs, and they badge into the elevator, and they press a floor. And again, I'm looking at this, and I can tell you what brand of elevator this is, what fixtures the elevator tells me, what keys are probably in certain locked panels. I watched which badge reader they were using, because there's two down here. We've got Indala and we've got HidProx. So I can say, okay, well, all right, you're using Indala. I know that badge credential as well. I'm like, oh, that's probably the reader that was on the outside of the building. I'm willing to bet if I tamper with that reader, I could get some of your badge credentials. And we're riding upstairs, and then they take me to their main, meeting hall. The front room, the lobby of their office was like a little gallery space with bland corporate art that people pretend to respectfully look at while they're waiting for their meeting to start. But that's not what I did. When I walked in, the first thing I did is look up over my shoulder at the door, and above the door, I'm like, oh, okay, I see what you got there. So now I've got the whole picture. Now, just by strolling along with my client before a meeting, I can figure out how I would break into this building, how I would get upstairs in this building, how I would break into their office, and how I would do it without setting off any alarms. And if at any point a human being interacted with me and said, hey, why are you in here? I've got a list of excuses that would probably just get me off the hook. That is how I and some other people in our industry just sort of see the world. When we walk through city streets, we just, some people just see doors that are shut. Well, I can't go in there. That one's closed. The business is not operating. Or this place says no entrance except employees. Well, I'm not supposed to go that way. People like us, however, we see the world as, oh, I could exploit that. I could get in there. Oh, I'd love to mess with that one day. We can look at, here's another building. Again, different city, different scene. One snapshot, one drive-by cell phone photo. And like me, I know Johnny's looking up here. He's like, oh, I could spot that. I could spot that. Our brains instantly see. They've got a telephony box on the outside. If my mouse is going to pop up somewhere. Yeah. Oh, God, yeah. They totally. I have it in my notes, right? So in addition to, they have like a Door King box. They've got the Herc rentals outside of United Rentals, like Genie Lift. I can tell you what kind of exit device, the Von Duprin exit bar over there. I really wish I knew why my... Oh, there we go. It's just off the other monitor. Maybe. Give me 1 second here. Man. Nah, not gonna, oh, there we go. Yeah, cool. It's just way over here. My accelerometer needs to be like remote recalibrated. Is that how this works? So yeah, we've got, and again, intercom systems. We'll talk about exploiting those. How about down here, we've got a badge reader. What's next to the badge reader? What is that? Could you see it? Yeah, it's an accessibility button. Do you know that most of those are wireless? They're wired for power, but they actually operate wirelessly, and it's not encrypted. So you can absolutely capture a data packet and replay it. Now, from the outside of the building, that's not all that interesting. But if someone's on the inside of the building leaving, and a lot of times, even able-bodied people, they'll just, smack the button if they're carrying stuff. So if you're outside pretending to be, like messaging somebody, but in your pocket you've got, a hack RF or a flipper even nowadays. How many people got a flipper 0, right? If you watch someone leaving the building and the door has that automated, very slow swing open, you're like, well, they just used that button. They're all made by Camden Door Controls. It's one company that makes all of them. You're like, oh, God, got captured packet, cool. Wait till they leave, replay that packet. The door just opens for you when you walk in. Absolutely. Everything from the hinges on the outside, there's Knox boxes in it. This is just how we see the world. And invariably, if you see like our hotel rooms, people who are in physical security, you'll see that, there's a lot of other interesting things steps we take in our own worlds to kind of make our own security better. So that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about how people like me break into places, because that is what I do, in addition to offering consulting and training and advising. Like, my team and I don't belong there. But I'm going to talk to you about the tools and tactics we use so you understand how to prevent some of them if you're on the defensive side. And it's not about like buying better locks. A lot of people know me as a lock picker, and you may have seen a lot of diagrams and things that I've put on the internet showing how locks work, and here there's pins in the lock, and if the pins are binding or they're not binding because you use a key. Has anybody seen any of these animations online over the years? Like this, I'm part of a nonprofit called Tool that runs a lot of lock-picking areas at big cons, small cons, and we've shown people how lock-picking works. And I enjoy it. I mean, lock-picking is a fun hobby, and it's useful sometimes on jobs, but most of the time, when people like us are breaking into buildings, we're not picking the locks. That's like way down on the list of stuff to do, because there's way faster and easier ways to get into a property or to get into a locked resource. Criminals don't pick locks because they're not very well trained, and if you want to be, a legal criminal like me, you're not reaching for your lock picks most of the time. You're doing things criminals will do. And some of that stuff is really effing dumb. Knocking hinge pins out. I mean, I've started making this slide. It's so silly. It's so dumb looking, right? But this is a thing that we have done on jobs. If there's a really good lock and it's installed properly and there's tight fitment, and you're like, oh man, I'm not messing with that. You want to mess with that? And they're like, no. I'll knock the hinge pins out and just walk the door away from the other side of the wall. And you don't have to do it with big tools. Like, no one's going to shove a hammer in their pocket and walk around. There's a little hammerless tool. It's a little punch, basically. It's a little spring between two weights. And you can just knock those hinges right out, right? You can knock the pins out. There you go. Now you might say, wait a minute. No. I'm thinking of my house, I'm thinking of my apartment. Doors swing inward to spaces. Doors, the hinge, the knuckle of the hinge would be on the inside. You can't do that. Sure, in your house it's that way. It's not that way in this building. It's not that, look at those doors over there. They're all swinging outward. Why is that? In commercial spaces, like this one we are in right here, this is designated Class A because it can hold more than 50 people. It is an area of assembly. It also is designated Class academic or educational under NFPA fire code. But it means those doors are swinging out to leave for panic egress. It means those knuckles of those hinges are facing the hallway, the insecure side, the exterior of the building. So absolutely. And if your residential environment is over 3,200 square feet, if you live in a McMansion, you have doors that swing out at least in one egress point. I do a lot of fire code stuff now because it's a reason to be in a building. We'll show you like scenes of me in my fire inspector outfit because I went through all the training, mostly just so if I'm in a building and someone's like, what are you doing here? I'm like, excuse me, but what are y'all doing here? Because these doors are effed. And I can talk about all the code violations that I find. If you want to make your doors better, by the way, against this attack, I'll show you little solutions to everything I'm talking about. This is called a security hinge. You swing this hinge shut, the door closes. This is called a stud and hole design. So you can see you've got a little stud here that swings into the hole in the door frame. It doesn't matter if I knock those pins out. No one's going to pull that away from the wall. If you don't want to rehang your doors, you don't have those, they make what are called jam pin screws. Major manufacturing, locksmithing supplier sells these. You back off a couple screws, you put in the jam pin screws. Well, now the door won't close. What are you going to do? Well, you're going to take these screws, back them off, and replace them with nothing. You just made a security hinge without a lot of fuss. Next time you're in an office or something and a door's open, especially to a sensitive area like an executive office or a finance room or a data center, look and see if the inside of that hinge has a little set screw in there. It's called a captive pin hinge. You can't get the pin out unless that screw is backed off, which is not going to happen unless the door is open. Can you guess where this door might be located, by the way? We've got very beige and taupe sort of accommodations here. It's very soothing to the eyes, very bland. Any guesses? What? School, bank? No. Very good guesses. This is a hotel. Yeah, this is a hotel. There's a lot of, I'm on the road more than I'm home. The same thing with my wife. We're always gone somewhere. We like to say, when people are, where do you live? I'm like, well, our cats in our books live in Pacific Northwest. We live in seat 2A and 2B, which means we live at whatever Marriott's nearest some job. I could talk a lot about hotels. If any of you are frequent travelers, you've probably encountered the single biggest problem with hotel security, which applies to the business world as well, and that's door fitment. If you've ever had really terrible door closers, things that don't latch properly. Like, that was a fully open door, and I just let it swing shut. And if I walk up to it and shove at it, nope, sorry.
Full on open.
Kicking it, and then it slams again. You're like, all right, this has got to be closed, right? No, not exactly. So, yeah, the idea of door close, the actual industry reg would surprise you. The goal for how tight door closer should be is really hard to achieve in practice. Like, again, this is not like this door was installed this way. You get drift over time. You get swelling, and adjustments of the doors have to be done, especially doors that take a lot of punishment. The appropriate standard is you open a door by the width of the door and see if it will self-close and self-latch. That's a high bar. Not a lot of doors will do that. They all should be doing that. And that's a door with an automatic closer, not a door with spring hinges. We'll get in. We don't have to get into bullshit like that, but like spring hinges are bad. They cause a lot of injuries, and then I get to testify in court about them. Yeah, 5 seconds is the appropriate closing interval window for a door, if you're curious. A fully open door should self-close in 5 seconds. If it doesn't, we do this all the time. We just kind of hang around. We're like, you do your recon. You're like, look at that door. That door closer is not adjusted. Let's just pretend you're sitting on a park bench. And a person can walk completely by you, and you just got to hustle yourself over, get a toe in that door, and then you're in a building. Another thing about door fitment, when the door does close, if it's not closed correctly, I mean, you might just kind of shoulder the door open like you saw a couple of those videos there, or you might be able to reach into the door with a lot of little pocket-sized tools like this. So here we have a locked door. We're just going to traveler hook this. We do a lot of work with critical infrastructure. This is a municipal water company. I'm like on a sidewalk, and I can just walk up to this door, and there we go. This little tool that features in many of our client videos is called a traveler hook, sometimes called a shrum tool in some locksmith catalogs. What is going on here? We've got these locked doors, and I'm just kind of shoving like a hook. Let's look from the inside. How many people have never seen this before? All right, there's only 1 or 2 hands I think I saw in that one. But you have a door that's locked and closed, right? You've got a latch that holds the door shut. We're reaching in and just grabbing that latch. We're just pulling on it with a traveler hook and waltzing in. So these little hooks and stabbing tools, you would not believe how often this gets people into locked doors. And you might say, well, all right, that's because you could reach the latch. What if you put one of those big plates over I've seen these big protective plates. Yeah, I can't reach in there with a traveler hook. The person filming this, they had some baling wire on them, because like any good hacker on a farm, you get yourself your baling wire and pop that right open. The problem is not whether you can reach the latch or not. The problem is that all of these are examples of incorrect door fitment, and the latches are not working properly. Anytime you have a keyed door, a lockable door that uses a proper key, that's called an entry handle set, it's supposed to be paired with a dead latch plunger right here. So you have let's talk about door latches for like 1 second. Again, you're not hardware installers, but the moment you walk through a door, just give it a glance. You'll see what I'm talking about if you've never noticed this before. So all doors should have a latch. When they swing shut, this is what springs into the strike plate, holds the door shut. If the wind blows, if you lean on the door, it doesn't swing open. The door is closed and latched. There are many doors that only have the spring latch, like doors of no consequence, closets, bathrooms sometimes, little things like that. Doors that aren't usually lockable with a proper big key. That's fine. This is a passage mode spring latch. But proper doors shouldn't use one of those. Proper doors should have a dead latch, which has a little bit more going on. You can kind of see that here. The dead latch has an additional element, an additional little plunger here. It's called the guard bolt. If you see that extra little bolt there, you've got yourself a dead latch. That's good. That's what you should have if you have a key on like an entry handle set. The thing is, you might not know this unless you're a lock installer. You usually only see this when the door's open. Like, oh, it's got a spring latch and a little plunger, a little poke at them. Do you know that when the door swings shut and that latch springs out into the strike plate, the guard bolt's not supposed to pop out. It's literally supposed to be held back by the door frame, by the strike plate. Try this. If you walk up to a door, press in on the guard bolt, and then try to push the latch. It will not go in, or hopefully won't. That's how a dead latch works. That's what makes the latch dead. It makes it impossible to do those dumb little slipping and poking and wire hooking attacks. The problem is door fitment. If you don't have the correct hardware mating up against that latch, it's not going to engage the guard bolt, and then all this is for naught. And we see this constantly on job sites. You yourself might have bought a new doorknob for something, like you had an old rusty one, let's replace it. And it comes in the box with all these parts. And it's got long screws and short screws, and it's got different strike plates. But you put the doorknob in, and you're like, oh, the strike plate is still fine. That's got some paint on it, but that still works. The hardware in the box is included in the box for a reason. It's supposed to mate up properly with the hardware you're installing. So here we have a server room on a client site. Breaking into it with a very sophisticated tool called a piece of plastic trash. We're just shoving that in there. Bam, server room. That took no effort, and if you look, you can even tell, does this look like the hardware that came with this handle set? Look at the hole, look at the size of that hole. Is the strike plate missing? There is a strike plate there. What is it? Someone knows what this, you saw it at the very beginning of the video. Yes, this is a badge reader door. This is a card access control door. That is an electronic strike plate that's tied into their access control system. We literally have students in our trainings. We run trainings on this all the time at Red Team Alliance, one of my companies, right? We've had integrators and installers who've come to learn more about RFID and things, and they said, yeah, our boss, he's always like, oh, we got that job coming up next week. Order the QX41, the one that has that really big hole. It works no matter what the doors the client has. No, that's super not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to order the hardware that mates up correctly with as little freedom of movement as possible. Another water company, like, again, I'm just showing the site administrator.
So proper,
nice
sergeant
locks,
lock,
they did a good
again,
job of everything, but the installer didn't put them, like, that last little bit of
bad door
effort.
fitment.
Bam. I don't belong in there at all. I am so not authorized, and I will hurt myself. But I got in there with a $5 like hook because the door just isn't fit together correctly. Like, they fumble the ball on the 1 yard line, and we see this constantly. How about panic egress bars, crash bars as they're called? Bam. That was a bent rod. Like, I went to Home Depot, I got rod stock, and I bent it into a hook. And again, fire code. The activating motion of hitting that door, which I'm doing with this flimsy steel rod, you can't have more than 15 pounds of pressure on that handle. It has to be operable, and that's for an exterior door. If this was, again, a server room or a wiring closet, an interior door, it has to be 5 pounds of pressure or less. You wouldn't have a panic device, I guess, on a wiring closet unless you've got a really big wiring closet. You're having parties in there. But yeah, like a little hook, bam. And it's because these doors don't mesh together super, super tight. You might look at the door and be like, well, that looks kind of sealed. Well, that's a weather seal. That'll prevent wind and rain from blowing in and out. But weather stripping is not a security device. And sometimes you don't even have that. Here we have a little exit paddle, but you can see daylight just coming through there. I can reach easily through this. Far and away, our absolute favorite is we have a lot of clients who are in Silicon Valley, in the tech sector. You go down to California, it is just frameless glass doors everywhere because the weather's nice, and you get this big half-inch gap. And here's one of our teammates just walking up with a hook, reaching. There's that Von Duprin device, or not Von, that's the Rockwell device, Rockwood. So yeah, that you couldn't tell, he actually did cause that device to, it moves just like less than a centimeter. And he did it with just, again, a chunk of rod stock that you can buy anywhere. These other people, they actually do work there. They weren't supposed to be in the shot. They were just guys talking to each other, and they were like, they're looking at you like, did that guy badge in? How did that guy just get in that door? And they're just sitting there puzzled, figuring out what the hell happened. So yeah, you will absolutely see this hardware all over the place, especially at very posh buildings. They love the slick look of it. But if you can slip through the weather stripping, or if there's no weather stripping, anybody can pop that open with minimal effort and a very thin bit of wire. Now, this other door you saw me reach into and hit the crash bar, it's a little hard to tell. This is actually really late at night. That's a parking lot light, but it's about 10 or 11 p.m. There's no one in this building. It's a no-occupancy structure during the evening hours, so they would have been allowed to do something to secure the door better. You can kind of see. Can anyone catch it in this footage? Yeah, there is clearly a thumb turn down here. There's a deadbolt. They could have secured that. But we got fire code coming back at you. You can't trap people in a building. You can't have a keyed deadbolt on the inside. If somebody happens to be stuck in a bathroom and you lock up for the night, they have to be able to get out, which means thumb turns. There have to be user-accessible, intuitive thumb turns. This tool exists. It's called a J-tool or a thumb turn flipper. We give these all the time to our firefighter friends and our first responder friends. What does it do? It reaches through a door, and you can translate exterior movement to interior movement right on that thumb turn. Just zoop, zoop. So yeah, they've got to respond to an alarm. Nobody's at Target. Closed for the day. Well, Target's now open. Get yourself some cheap Massimo shirts. So yeah, you will see these. You will see little thumb turns on certain doors. And by all means, just go at it with a thumb turn flipper. If you're breaking in, it is not hard to do. It's a little weird in your brain. The first time you do it, you're like, which way am I turning? And you're trying to think to yourself, and you keep getting it backwards. But yeah, we pop things open all the time. More and more these days, though, electronics are king, right? Electronic attacks, because we have electronic access control system. That's absolutely what's up. How many people know what I'm talking about here? You know where this is going to go? This little device. These are called request to exit sensors, REX sensors. Have you seen these before? There's got to be more. Come on, open your eyes when you're walking around the buildings. Like, you'll spot these on every possible install. They're made to like blend in. They're beige and they're kind of up and out of the way. They're not big. Start looking for them. You're going to notice them. The reason they're called request to exit is this door right here is locked. Like, it's potentially locked. But what type of locks are these giant silver boxes? How do they work? They're mag locks, right? They're electronic magnetic locks. And if the power gets cut, well, then the doors will open. The power gets turned back on, the door locks again. Well, if you have to get out of the building, you're either like badging out, because you can't just use a handle. Like a turning handle is not going to change electric locks. The electronics have to turn off those locks to let you out. And a lot of people don't want to fumble with badges and like hit a badge reader if they're carrying things. So these sensors detect motion, and if there's motion on the inside of the door, the system says, oh, that's a person leaving. The request to exit sensor is telling me there's a human being there. I have to unlock this door. Who knows how these work? What do they sense? What do they see? Temperature, absolutely. So if we change the temperature on the inside of the door will unlock. And you can do that from the outside pretty easily. There we are. Again, all of our first responders and such that we train, there are so many firefighters out there now that love that they don't have to grab the irons and the Halligan bar and everything else. They can come up to a building, they instantly can tell that there's a mag lock on this door. I don't know if you saw at the beginning, there's a big carriage bolt sticking through the door. And that firefighter who walked up to it, he's like, oh yeah, look at that, this is going to be an electronic system. What tool are all these people using? Canned air, absolutely. Spray duster, if you hold it upside down, the little difluoroethane will boil off. There are products that are used just to make cold blasts on circuit boards if you're debugging, like which component might be failing. You can buy tech spray or freeze spray. That's basically just R134A. It's refrigerant that you would use in an air conditioner. So you can blast that out. You can blast difluoroethane or tetrafluoroethane and create a cold, cold cloud right through the door. The rec sensor sees it, thinks someone's leaving, and the door unlocks. There we go. There's a number, you don't have to use like clouds of gas. You can spray other stuff through the door. I mean, that's a pretty nice and non-messy way to do it. It all boils off in the atmosphere. If you're a dingus like me and you walk out of a bar late at night with a woman who will later become your wife, and you're just like taking a drink because you're like, I just fucking walked out with this, okay. And you say, hey, check this out. This will be fun. And you say this because you're in front of a bank. And the person who will later marry you doesn't know what's about to happen, but they know you well enough to be like, I don't want to see what this is about to be about. And you wind up with a silly video like this that keeps getting shared on the internet. So we're locked, but... So there's a rec sensor, yeah, so let's get a little mouthful. Yeah, like it saw something, and then the bank is open. I didn't go in. I'm sure that's probably legal. Using something else here, you've been in a hotel where at night you need your room key to get in the lobby. Well, I'm not using my room key. I'm using, like there was a display, like come see the Mystic Caverns. Like I just took one of those display cards. Where was I keeping it before I opened the door? Did you see? Yes, someone heard me. Someone saw it, I heard you. It's under my arm. Just warming it up, just to get it a little warmer than the ambient temperature. Slide it through, motion sensor hits. Look around when you're walking through the world. You will start seeing these. There are a couple of companies that make them. They all use infrared. Oh, almost. For the longest time, GE was the only one who made this, and then GE was sold to Interlogix, who sold to United Technologies. I think this isn't even really on the market anymore. No one bought it. This uses IR and microwave radar, so it was a lot harder to trick. But you get a lot of incidents of like user friction. If it doesn't detect the user, people complain to their integrator, and then the integrator's coming out and trying to tune it. Nobody wants that. So everybody gets the passive infrared on their jobs, you know, whenever they install stuff, unless the customer requires something more secure. Now, speaking of more secure, you don't see this much in the US. You do see this overseas a lot more often. I mean, like Sick Codes, who saw Sick Codes talk on John Deere, right? So I love the number of international folk that get here and to other cons, so definitely there's a world outside of the United States. And you will start to see, what's this little green button over here? What is that? I know you've seen these somewhere. Has anyone seen one of these? All right, not a lot of hands. Boy, travel more, come on. Travel's the one thing you can spend money on and come away richer. That and food, as I clearly demonstrate. But yeah, push to exit is another style of egress system where you don't have to badge out, but if you mechanically push this button, that'll send a signal, okay, unlock the door. Again, it depends on how you install it.
All right, server room test number 1.
So this is a secure cage in a server room. This badge does not have access. Like, what are you doing? Excellent. Notice they even had a little cover on it, which is designed to prevent some yo-yo from sticking their hand in and trying to swat it with something. But they put it right by the door. Like, what are you doing? Speaking of egress solutions, there's another really cool way to trip out egress solutions to getting on premises of big properties, and that's vehicles. Vehicle gates. How many people have ever been, again, this could be a hotel, a school, you name it, where you need some sort of way to pay to get in or use a credential to get in, but then egress, if you just drive up to it, the gate's just like open to let you leave. That's called an egress loop, because these are in-ground loop sensors. They detect metal, they detect a vehicle. In fact, sometimes bicyclists or even small motorcycles, do you ever run into this on motorcycles where some systems don't detect a motorcycle? Yeah, they need to see metal. Now, if you do have a system that's calibrated to detect bikes especially, that's not a lot of metal, you can trip those systems with not a lot of metal. Again, firefighters do this all the time. Can you blow my whistle, baby, let me know. And then that gate's it. Yeah. So he's going to go get on premises, and this is a fire engine trying to get to, like, answer a call, and no one is out there, and they didn't want to, waste time on the phone. So, okay, just throw the ladder under the gate, pick up the ladder, get back in. A lot of this is because of legal code. Fire code and egress code controls a lot of the way buildings are architected, and our structured environment, our built environment, allows you to get out easily in the event of emergency. It just also happens to allow us as attackers to get in. Perhaps the biggest one, right? Lever-style door handles. You don't see door knobs anymore in commercial spaces because a door knob is not operable by someone with reduced grip function. It's not operable by someone, maybe if the door is really hot. What if there is, in fact, a fire? Gripping a piece of metal is not good. Thwacking it with an elbow, or so you can do that with a lever-style handle. But it means that doors can be opened with what's called an under-door tool a lot of the time. This was some special they were filming, and they said, all right, so you're going to show us how to break into this room? And the camera guy, he's like, oh, we're going on the ground here? What's going on? And all of a sudden, the door just popped open. And, they had to, cut. They're like, what did you do? I thought you were going to pick the lock or something. And they're like, can you make that take longer? So we had to refilm it a few times for the cameras. Well, what was I using? I was down on the ground. I was nowhere near the lock. An under-door tool is crazy simple. It is a rod and a string, basically. You are delivering a piece of string, a piece of line, to the inside of the inner door handle and pulling on it. There we go. That's as simple as it gets. And so many buildings are just awash with doors that have no protection against this. They can't. They need to have these style of handles to be compliant. And many of us are staying in hotels because we're all from out of town. My hotel room, just for fun last night, I couldn't sleep, so I broke into it a couple times. Thankfully, no one asked me what I was doing. But this is a hotel at SHOT Show, the big firearm show. So yeah, all these guys from Finland are hanging out, and they're like, let's do it.
So close.
Yeah. So always have your under-door tool on you. Which I do, actually, right now. I'm carrying an under-door tool with me. Do you know where? Any guesses? No, it's not in my pant leg. It's in my belt. My friend Amadeo made this up once, and I was like, oh, I'm doing that. Yeah, maybe later on at the party or something, we'll pull it out and try to find. We won't break into doors, but you can check it out. So yeah, having a really rudimentary tool that very few things can block. There are ways to try to prevent this, right? You can have what's called an articulating door bottom. So when the door closes, this little bar drops down. You can have interlocking door sill hardware. So this actually, you can see there's no way to jam a tool in because these are mostly environmental seals, but they frustrate the hell out of an attacker if we try to push under the door and it's blocked. It's literally blocked off. It means we have to go over the door. Now this is my over-the-door tool. We got a lot of young faces in this room. Does anyone know what this is? What am I using? That is what we used to call film. Absolutely. Yeah. So this is just a loop, literally, of theater film. My friend Pope down in Utah sent me a roll once, and I've used it all the time. You feed it over the door. Now, I'm at the same height as the door handle. How do I know how high the door handle is on this side? Yeah, it matches the other side. I'm standing right there. I measured it. So I send it over, swing it off, and then I pull. You might not think the door handle's open up, but loads of them do. So yeah, when you think about installing a door handle, you can install it this way, or on this side of the door, it would be flipped over. So most door handles operate in either direction. That works just fine. If you've ever been in an environment where the door handle is mounted at a weird angle, this is because of under-door attacks. It is absolutely the reason. Like, people know about this. Industry folk know about this. There are other mitigations. This is a little handle shroud that we have against some doors in our buildings. Now, like, getting an under-door tool in there now, swinging a wire or something behind it, it's going to be incredibly hard. Operating the door is just fine. You can pull the handle, you can move it. It's not a security product. It's literally designed to prevent rolling carts from crashing into door handles. You can buy these in the Grainger catalog, right? They're $50. But they work perfectly for this solution. It looks a little big and industrial. If you have an office door or something you want to be a little more low profile, we got this little shroud, this little guy right here. You might say, oh man, what a cool, keen little security product that is. It is not a security product either. I give these to clients all the time. It's literally for hanging like shelving and stuff and racks in a closet in your bedroom. So I just buy a package of them and I screw them into the door. I'm like, oh yeah, you're protected. Magic security upgrade, done. Yeah. If you're like staying in a hotel though and you can't drill things, I mean you could drill things into the door I guess, but it's not recommended by most management. You want to protect yourself in a hotel, the old Douglas Adams saying, always know where your towel is. Jam a towel back there. It will do a pretty good job of preventing somebody from sticking something fishy in there. Trying to just give you little tips as we go. Your keys themselves. I said I don't pick a lot of locks, and here's one more reason. Like, why would I pick locks if I could just steal the keys? I was walking around some corporate campus, and there was a little cart used by the maintenance team, and I walked by it, and I was like, huh, that's a lot of keys. There's just tons of them here. This got to be a key to every freaking building. Now, that would be like stealing the keys, like taking them. They might notice that. There are less obvious ways of stealing keys. Number one is steal keys that people don't use a lot of the time. We talked at the very beginning on the outside of buildings about key boxes. Most key boxes are absolute dog crap in terms of security. They are very, very decodable, rapidly decodable with a very thin piece of metal. Pop the key box open. We have taken key boxes right from the side of a building, walked around, and opened doors. And then, again, what are you doing in here? Oh, I'm just from United Technologies. I'm checking out a few things on your water sensors. And they saw you, like, using keys to open up different, well, that guy must be from whoever he said he's from. He's got keys. It's really wild, though, because, like, there are services. I don't know if this business exists anymore. This is a couple years old when I took this photo. But it was a tech startup called WAG. It was like Uber for pet care. So if you're running late, coming home from work, you're like, oh man, I'm not going to get home in time to walk the dog. So you go on WAG and you'd be like, hey, somebody in my neighborhood who can get get Fido out the door. And they have a network of like partners, kind of like Uber has drivers. And they, okay, well, I'll send a WAG representative to your house, and you have this on the front of your house so they can get in. And it was like a $4 lockbox. And it's very bright green, so you could drive through certain neighborhoods and you'd be like, WAG, 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 crime victim, WAG. And yeah, all these keys outside of buildings, this is really, really common. Loads of key boxes here. And why are there so many? It's because there's tons of companies that have to send a field technician every so often out to a building, often enough and regularly enough that they don't want to like mess with the front desk, because this is somebody from, maybe there's a telecom that has a lot of stuff on the roof, all this infrastructure. They have to hit like certain buildings, and they can't take that time out of their day for greetings and meetings and can I have the key please? So they get a box on the wall. Anytime they send their person, they can just pop their way in. And you get one for the gas company and for the electric and for who the hell cares. Not only are they really great ways to steal keys on the backs and sides of buildings, but they give you, again, a cover story. Who are some of the companies that service this building? Shout them out if you see some. We got CenturyLink for the telecom, absolutely. We've got Otis Elevator, an Otis shop, so they're elevators, absolutely. Kitty manufactures a lot of these boxes. Kitty is a sub-brand of Supra, and Supra is an OEM. But you could always just say, I'm here from Kitty. I'm servicing your fire extinguishers. Because a lot of fire extinguisher stuff is Kitty. We also have PG&E as the gas and electric. So this is California, obviously. So yeah, like key boxes, heck yeah, steal keys. What about stealing keys without ever touching the keys? That seems impossible. No, it's not impossible at all. You can photographically steal a key. This kind of stuff has been shown on the internet a number of different ways. Here is one example. I was giving a presentation, and they had to unlock a wiring closet to like turn on the AV, and they left the key on the table. And I said, I'm gonna do something in the presentation about this room. Do you mind? And they said, no, like, show us what you're talking about. So I took like a crappy cell phone photo, and I threw it in my computer and fired up Photoshop. And I have a series of grid lines that are for all different brands of locks, because it's not like there's an infinite range of possible cuts on a key. Every manufacturer has a set known number of differs for each position, for its bitting. It's called the key bitting. So I align the key, I kind of get it in between my guides, and I even have them with, going from grays and blues. So blue is even numbers, gray is odd numbers, 0 through 9. We could do this together. This first bitting position, let's see what it looks like. To me, I would kind of call that a 5. Looks pretty good. Second position. What color is the line, you think? What do you think it is? What's the number? Shout it out. Remember, 1 is gray and 2 is blue, because 0 is a valid cut. So I would call that a 2 right there. The deepest possible cut is 9. So what does the next position look like? I like 7. Keep on going. What's next? Yeah? Keep going. Yeah? What's the last one? Yeah. In no time, we just decoded that key. From a terrible photo, frankly, from just like a blurp and then walk away, you could make that key. You could copy that key, generate a new fresh copy, and then you walk around like you belong there. So when I see people's keys just kind of exposed, again, I'm in Lyft all the time, taking rides to and from airports, and like there's a lot of strangers getting in and out of people's cars, but I'm just seeing people's keys. I'm like, oh God, cover that up. Unless it's a guard, and I'm pretending to, like, hey, can you page this person upstairs? And I'm doing a little hip photo. Then I don't want the keys covered at all, because I can see the keys right here and get this guard's badge. But there are loads of places where people will put their keys like on the internet. Again, like our person, SOB used to retweet people's licenses when they would tweet like, here's my new ID, or here's my checks. I need someone to make like, just alert me when you see funny keys on the internet. This is a person on LinkedIn, and so glad to be back here. And this was an Airbnb listing that had the keys in one of the photos in the listing. This was some lawyer, labor union offices, got our new office lease. This is a freaking police station. And the person is like on Snapchat, like, look at all my keys at the dispatch desk. Sly Stallone beat with that one, though, with all the keys to Vatican City, so way to go. There are times this has been a problem. Like a German prison had to rekey all the locks because somebody happened to take a photo of the key and like, look, got my new job at the prison. And they found out, they're like, dude, you just compromised every single lock in this building. That was the master key. Now, how the green newbie got his hands on a master key, that's a different problem. Video today, like cell phones rocking the 1080 or even the 4K footage, you can do still frames out of video pulled from YouTube. This was a guy at some government building, there was a protest, and he was like, hey, please stay back on the sidewalk. And he came out, and I don't know what this key goes to, but I could absolutely decode it. It's a Yale, I can see the bitting. Like that's again, a still frame on YouTube. Sometimes you don't even have to do this, though. The decoding with all those grid lines, they're on my GitHub. If you come across a key, you want to decode it, I've got grid lines for all different brands of locks. We use them in class. But you don't have to do that in some instances. So we could put grid lines on these keys if we wanted to kind of show you what's up. While I'm troubleshooting this, who can tell me what's going on? Yeah, the bitting is listed on the key, right? So yeah, this screen is frozen right now. So I just dropped out of my slides. I don't know if you can turn it off and turn it back on. Happened to you too? Yeah. So while we're working on that, this is called a direct bitting code, right? Just jiggle the HDMI, let's see. Yep, bloop. All right, hopefully this resets some things. But yeah, the idea, while we're waiting to troubleshoot this, and I do hope, I see AV people moving around, so hopefully they're doing something. I'll plug this in and out again. Check your keys. I'm curious if anybody in this room literally has keys with numbers stamped on them, and then if you look at them, you're like, oh, wait a minute. Those look like the exact bitting codes of my keys. There's a really good chance that's what's up. Wow, that looks even more differenter. We might have her. Nope, we don't. What you got? All right, oh, you're just going to unplug the box. Yeah, let's do that. All right. Did anybody find any keys with numbers on them? Yeah? Oh, yeah. So imagine, like, I don't even, if I'm sitting next to you at a bar and I want your keys, I don't have to, like, take my phone out. I'm a freaking dummy, but I can remember 5 digits. Sometimes. Depends on how chemically enhanced I am. So yeah, we have a whole gallery. I mean, well, we can just click through later. There's whole I mentioned Tool, the nonprofit that does a lot of lockpicking things. And as I was making up some slides, I jumped into Slack. I'm like, hey, I'm doing things with blind, because you can have codes on keys that are not the direct bidding. It's called a blind code. And you'd need a lookup table, which, like, again, I have locksmithing software on my phone. I can just punch it in and get, okay, there's the real code. But that's at least a little bit of a bar that someone would have to cross. So I asked people in the Slack, I'm like, does anybody have photos of, like, some direct bidding codes? And I got flooded with just tons of people's keys. I'm like, I hope those aren't important keys, guys, right? We're still waking up. Let me see what else I can talk about for a minute while we're here. Yeah. Oh, my God, yeah, holy crap. So some of these, like Kathleen, she dropped, like, this is like 30 keys almost, and it's just bags and bags of these that people had in their collections. Because if you're a big retail operation, not like a boutique niche locksmith, you can understand how this would happen. If you're a big, like, all you do is make lock plus key, and it's a huge factory, and you're kicking out product into packaging to go out on the store shelves at Home Depot or Walmart, the person assembling the pins is not the person cutting the key. It's not the person putting all the packaging together. In order to coordinate these products, still nothing. In order to coordinate these products and get them into the retail channel, we're going to do what Johnny suggested and turn off presenter and just kind of Iron Man it here. Let's go to duplicate mode only. Well, yeah, I mean, it's not great, but I don't have any notes, but I'll just do it. We're going to play the rest of these, doing it live. So, yeah, you can see right up here, 866-555, like that's clearly 866-555. These are direct bidding codes. All of these are keys with just direct bidding codes. They're constantly out there, and if somebody can just kind of take a glance at them, I tell people, and we used to joke about on Twitter, like, don't like tweet your license. You probably shouldn't share photos of your keys. This is my favorite one that I've ever seen. This was the head of security at some like casino out in Wyoming, and he was like, I'm the sheriff in town, and I'm always watching you in my casino. So he got a giant cardboard cutout of himself, 1-to-1 scale, and he's wearing his keys in the cardboard cutout, like in the lobby. Like, that's banging. Good job, sir. I love it. Thank you. What do? It's not a foolproof solution, right? But my house key is actually covered up on my keychain by this little utility tool. I don't work for this company or anything like that, but it's a little bottle opener, corkscrew, wire stripper, and if my keys are hanging on my, like, the side of my jeans, they're kind of covered up. Yeah, you do what you can. It's not my real key. But you can try to decode it. I used to have a challenge where I was like, if you take a picture of this and tell me the bidding of that key, I'll give you something. But we said there's a lot of electronics in the world, right? A lot of systems are electronic access control. Sure, we can talk all about that. I'm going to not dive too deeply into any one topic. If you have specific questions, please ask me. I don't mind getting into really granular, crazy stuff. But like boxes like these on the front of many buildings and properties, these are called telephony systems. They usually have a directory. You can like dial somebody and they can buzz you in. There's only a few companies that have a command of most of the market. This is one of them. This is a company called Linear. So Linear, they've got a little lock on the outside of this panel right here. All the Linear boxes have the same key. It's a 222343 key if you're looking at industry catalogs. What does that mean? Well, again, this is a self-contained access control system. All the logic is in that box, that little cabinet. Drive up to a gated community, use my Linear key, and there's big black relays. Those are the relays that control all the access. And they have very helpful little buttons right next to them that you can change the state of the relay. So I just kept pressing buttons until I saw the gate start moving, and then I drove in. There's the Linear key. Like, it's $5 on an industry site. I don't know how good that copy of this key is. Just like this one up here, Door King. I know you've seen Door King. Even if you don't know you've seen Door King, you've seen these huge buttons, A, Z, call. Those 3 big buttons, you can see them from across the block. All Door King cabinets. Again, all the logic is self-contained in here. And because you want to keep people out of there, you've got a little lock on the outside of it. Door King has used the same key for decades. It's called the 16120 key. What do you do? What does it look like? The other was a video, very, very fast. Let's actually look inside of here. Wow, electronics and parts. If you don't do electronic hardware stuff, it's not that hard to get into this kind of system. You can get the manuals, the PDFs, they're all online. We've got this big terminal block here with all these wires going into it. Well, if you know which terminals to mess with on that block, you can do things like just get a little loop of wire and trigger the door to fire open. It's a closure between terminals 4 and 6 if you choose. So we just use our Door King key, take a little loop of wire, like David Lightman making a payphone call. All right, door is open. This has been exploited in the field. This was footage from Portland. There was somebody who went up to their box, and you can see they do something, and they sort of reach in, and then the door's open. And then they come in, and they stole packages or some bullshit. And my buddy who worked at this building, they were trying to figure it out, and he's like, oh, we should send it to Deviant. He sent me the footage. I was like, oh, well, that's obviously you have a Door King or Linear or Centex, something on the front. He's like, yeah, it's a Door King box. I'm like, well, yeah, they're all the same key. And management freaked. They had no idea. The building management was like, how has Door King not been sued? These keys are all over the place. Again, careful where you buy them. A lot of the eBay sellers and stuff, they sell really crap keys. I wouldn't trust them sometimes. But eventually, Door King got so much pressure that they were like, okay. Everyone is understanding that we've had the same lock for 89 years, and we're not going to do that. We're changing to new keys. The new keys in the series are 16001, 16002. We're going to eventually, these will be in the retail. So immediately the next day, industry sites were like, you heard Door King's got new keys? We got them. And this is the only site I actually really like, Hooligan Keys. It's run by an actual locksmith who serves the industry and code cuts the keys properly. I trust Hooligan Keys for quality product. I don't get a kickback or anything from Madison. Just a good guy. Yeah, an actual hooligan? He's done bad stuff? You think he's done bad things? All right, tell me at the party. All right, fun. Well, yes, he's a very fun guy. My favorite key to system. The idea of you might be saying well, that's crazy. How does this brand is all the same key and that brand is all the same key? I'll give you a key that works across a billion brands. It's this key right here. It's the CH751 key. If there was a time that, if you remember back before we had chip and chip payments on cards, everything was magstripe. And oh, have you heard thieves are installing skimmers in your coffee pots and your gas pumps and everything else? Thieves have this one magic key, this one weird trick. Local police hate it. Yes, so this key that would open up the gas pumps. It wasn't a gas pump key. This was the CH751. There was a time you could go on Amazon and under a certain department search for key, and it was the top result. It's the most copied and reused key everywhere. Anytime you have a complete rinky-dink, no security kind of install, and you're just well, don't mess with the thermostat. CH751 is a good chance of being the key. Here we have a bunch of locked panels and cabinets in a wiring room. All different brands, all different installers, different, this is a fire enunciator control, this is Brevo, this is a badge system. CH751, CH751. People would send me photos for the longest time when I gave a talk with my buddy Howard all about key reuse. And people were like, oh my God, this badge system, Honeywell, CH751, this alarm cabinet, CH751, this Sentry fire safe, they're all CH751. Because this is a school that had laptops for all the students, and they've had a locked cart. The locked cart was a CH751. It is the most commonly reused
Secure
key.
cabinet, CH751.
This is drug storage in an ambulance. Yeah. You will find these at truck stops because the exterior vehicle panels on big rigs and on motorhomes, CH751, super common. Key boxes. This is amazing, right? This is all the best keys in the building, you put them behind the worst lock in the building. CH751 pops it open. My favorite thing about this, by the way, is that in addition to all the important keys in the building, there are no fewer than 3 more CH751s in this box that do other stuff in this building. So yeah, but back to electronics. We've been jumping back and forth between mechanical and electronic a whole bunch. How many people use a badge system anywhere? For school, for work, for gym? Yes. So you're used to seeing these kind of fobs or sticker, like little dot tags or boopy cards, and you tap into a reader and away you go. I do this all the time too. Electronic access controls are everywhere. My reader looks different than yours because I use something called a Proxmark. It is the #1 tool for just copying and attacking electronic credentials. We don't have time to dig super deep into RFID. If you want a whole other RFID talk, we'll do that another time. But absolutely, you can get into the payload, the data payload inside of these credentials, usually with relative ease. And that means being able to then copy and make new credentials after the fact. Even a drive-by attack, you'll see this in some like spy TV shows and things. The idea of weaponizing a long-range reader. These are readers that work in parking lots, so they have a read range of a couple of feet maybe on a good day, that much bigger antenna coil. Well, that means if you go ahead and add your own custom circuitry to the inside, not much, we've just got a little couple of 18650s, a little boost converter for the voltage, and a little memory module to save the output. You can then stow this in maybe a backpack. And if somebody's sitting on a bench and you think this is the worker at some company, this is of course staged, but we put an actual access control badge in one friend's pocket, and Dennis walks by. Dennis pretends he's just waiting for somebody. Oh, you're here? Oh, you're on the, oh, yeah, I'll come down, I'll come around. That's a badge grab right there without actually touching the other person. When I talked about riding trains and seeing other people's badges, every one of these are super grabbable, super clonable. Yeah, get next to people at lunch. You know which restaurants right around the corporate office that everyone goes to. If I'm attacking that office, I'm just going to hang out with my bag, that green bag you see right there, with a hunt pad in it, just waiting for an employee to sit next to me. Or if they all stay inside their building because they have catering on site, where you just go in, you maybe in the lobby, you're like, hey, I'm waiting for a meeting for someone, and they should be along shoulder. Do you mind if I sit? And you wait, and you hope somebody will come in and out so you can kind of squeeze them at the door like a little pinch point. And eventually nobody's coming and going. You're like, oh man, well, I've been here a while. Can I use your restroom? And then you sit in the restroom for about an hour. And eventually you catch someone when their guard is down. And yeah, this is a badge grab that I did in a bathroom because it's hid procs and I just had my bag sitting at my feet. Got him. How do you prevent this? There are little shielding holders for badges. You can put your badges in a protected sleeve. They block and attenuate the signal immensely well for certain badge technologies. Makes my job harder. What do I do if that happens, by the way? Well, I then attack the reader. So we do this all the time. You may have seen this kind of thing before. You can take a reader, a badge reader, off the wall, and those data lines coming off the back of the reader typically are not encrypted at all. They're running a very old protocol, usually called WeGAND, 26 bits in the clear. We have a little tool, it's the size of a postage stamp, that you can punch down right on the data lines and then put the reader back on the wall. You don't even turn the reader off. You just move it away from its mount, install a little chip, put it back on the wall, and then every bit of data going over those data lines, you're logging. And you can come back for it later and dump all that badge data. It's called an ESP key. A friend of ours named Kenny designed it. We've been kicking them out for a long time. We use these on so many jobs. Really, really nice. And it's virtually undetectable because it's in the wall. It doesn't interfere with the reader. Now, you can get even crazier. And if we want to do a longer RFID talk, we can talk about other kinds of credentials. So that you've got cards, you've got fobs. These are stickers, so you can make really tiny copies of different credentials and have one card with multiple credentials on it because you have a little sticker. They're not to scale. Let's make them to scale. So you can stick one inside your cell phone or something like that. There's also, down at the end here, these are also not to scale. Let's fix that. Does anyone know what those are? They are implants. Yes, we're all waving our hands up over here. These are implantables. This is really useful on some jobs. My wife and I both did this, so our hands are rather unique. There's video online of us going under the needle. What do I do with some of my chips? Well, I keep one permanently programmed as HID procs. This right here, this is a multi-technology reader. So I'm walking on a job site, I'm like, I wonder if they have legacy credentials enabled. Yep, they have legacy credentials enabled. That's going to make my job easier, so I can interrogate the system without even having any kit on me. My wife, we just cloned, when she was working at one company, we cloned her work badge so she didn't have to have her badge when she would walk in other buildings. That really annoyed the physical security team because they didn't know how she was doing this and why they were seeing her badge in and out and what was going on here. Eventually, she got a special permission from like the CISO that she was allowed to do that. Felt good. Most of the time, I just do dumb stuff, like I copy my hotel key to my hand pretty often. No matter how tipsy I get, I can always get back in my room, even if I lose my wallet. It's beneficial. It's a very good, very useful thing. Yeah. So again, that's RFID stuff. I'll give you a real-world story though once. And we're getting into some stories now. So how are we doing on time? We're doing pretty good. So there was an actual job we were on, and we had stolen a credential using the hunt pad in a bag. We got some employee credential, and then we go off to some cubicle in the common area, and Bobak is like at his laptop. He's like, all right, making badges. Boom, bang, copy, copy. He's generating badges for all the team members. So now we can walk around this big office complex. And for me, because we all had guest badges, the company let us in under being visitors, but we were rewriting data onto those guest badges because Bobak knew how to crack the guest badge and overwrite it. So I was like, can you give me your guest badge? I was like, hang on, write it to my hand. This is just, it's long format procs, I can put it on my hand. So I put my hand down, he writes it, and then I walked around the building all the time using my hand, but not looking like it. I had my badge on a reel, and I would walk up to doors and just kind of hit the door like this and then walk in. And I was found in a data center room after I'm taking selfies, proving I got putting hands on things. And an employee doing something in the racks was like, hey, buddy, can I help you with something? And I was like, no, I'm just checking the coolant levels in these systems. I'm here with Johnson Controls. And he's like, you can't be in here. I was like, no, the coolant, though. He's like, no, you have a red badge. That's a visitor badge. You're supposed to be escorted by other people if you're going to be in an area like this. Who let you in? I was like, no, I come here every 6 months. I mean, no one's ever been letting me in before. Did I do something wrong? He's like, we gotta sort this out. This is a secure area. Please hang on. And he picks up a little phone. He says, yeah, is mobile to come down to Data Hall 6? Okay, thanks. He's like, I'm sure you're just, you seem like a nice guy, but we do have to check this out. Security guards now in the room with him. They're talking, looking at me like, so how did you get in this room? And I was like, I have a badge. They gave me the badge at the desk. I'm here with Johnson Controls. I'm just trying to sell it. And I'm saying, I got to check the fluorescent light fluid. Can I borrow that ladder? He's like, no, look, you seem like a nice dude. Whoever let you in here, you're covering for them because you like them, but they're not doing their job right. We're not going to fire them. We just need to have a little talk with whoever let you in here because this is not appropriate. You have to be escorted. So I got to ask you, who let you in? I kept insisting, nobody let me in. I badged in. And finally, the security guard was like, fine. He played it that way. He's like, yeah, SOC, yeah, it's mobile. Yeah, we're in Data Hall 6. We got this guy with the beard. Yeah, the Johnson Control. Yeah, you've heard about it. Who let him in? He's not telling us. And I hear this squawk coming back. They're like, yeah, mobile, we're rolling back that footage. We're watching him walk up with a red badge, hit the door, because I was just kind of beep, like this. Or we're watching the door go green. We don't know what's going on. And they got so confused. I was like, hey, man, if your door system's having a problem, if I don't belong in here, I'll just leave. And I just kind of pieced out while they're checking the door controller. If they were smart, they would have taken my badge and said, give that to me and let me see it. Let me verify it. But they didn't do that. They just broke their brain. And even if they checked me, I'm not carrying any other badges. Well, I am. It's just a badge you don't think I have. So that's the kind of stuff that I get to do on jobs. I have a whole lot more stories, and if we have a moment, I know we started a few minutes late, and then we got the little delay there. Do we have time for one or two stories? Would you enjoy that? All right, I'm the last talk. I know there's just the party later, but if you want a couple stories, all right. The way we'll play this is this is where we need show of hands, right? So we've got a couple of tales that we can get in here. Problem Solver is kind of just a funny social engineering story. Say Again has to do with radios. I can talk about elevator stuff. There is a job we did with some armed guards. They didn't shoot at us, but it was a funny gig. The cable technicians bluffing. Servicing the doors has some hilarious video. If you're into surveillance, Detailed Dossier is a good one. And a job that totally went away I wasn't expecting was called, I called it You Don't Work Here. So this is plurality voting. Raise your hand as much as you want. Who wants number 1? Who would like to hear number 2? Story number 3. Story number 4. More hands on that. Story number 5. How about story number 6? Ooh, a lot of hands there. Story number 7. Ooh, even more hands. And story number 8. And a lot of, wow, all right. So We'll do, was it armed guards was kind of popular? And then we'll do one of the later stories at the end there. So if I can manage to, bloop, yeah. All right, so armed guards. A lot of guards are not very well trained. And this is just a natural consequence of the labor market. Like, they're not paid a ton. Their job is mostly observe and report. Like, guards are just supposed to be kind of a warm body who maybe can help someone, like, get it, like, you couldn't access that room? Well, let me check if you belong there, kind of thing. This was a guard desk, by the way. You can see, like, no one was there. We came into a building once, and it was just unoccupied. So I just sat there with this binder that had keys and key card access, and, like, for all the keys, and I just kind of spun around in the chair. And someone took a picture, and they're going to go break into something else. And I said, all right, I'm just going to chill here, and I'm going to wait for anyone to come along and ask me what the hell I'm doing. And I literally waited for 15, 20 minutes, and I got bored because I don't know where the guard was. And late at night, there's not a lot of people. They've got something else. They're solving a problem. That happens. Now, armed guards are a little sharper. They go through more training. They tend to often have come from maybe like they've gotten out of the military or something. They're working private security now. And this was a facility that had armed guards. We were facing a pretty hardened target. This was it was a biomedical research lab, we'll call it. It was an industrial area of the city, not a lot around there. And we're like, all right, across the street, there's like a Chinese restaurant on Google Street View. We're going to camp out there. The employees are going to go there for lunch. We'll get some badges, do our thing. I wasn't on this job. This was Bobak and Robert, a guy who used to be on our team. They quickly learned that was not going to be feasible. That was not a Chinese like restaurant. It was like an herbal and tea shop. And no one was like going over there for lunch. So the building itself, like we're going to have to get into this building there's no bus stops or anything. There's no transit. There were gates around the back of the building, so getting to the other doors or parking around back was going to be a problem. There was really just one main entrance. All the other windows were blacked out. They were very high up. It was a tight building, right? And this main entrance, as we drove by from the road, you could put eyes on it. Like, that's a lobby with guards. There are guards walking around in there. They seem like they have got their act pretty squared away. So we're going to have to do electronic credentials. But they did kind of look at the building, again, remote, like long-distance telephoto. They're like, this is tight-ass doors. We're not slipping latches. These are all single doors, all steel. This is going to be an electronics as a good access venue. So how are we going to do this? We've got our hunt pad. Put that in a laptop bag. You got armed guards. What do a lot of armed guards want to become? A lot of them want to become cops. Send in a cop, right? Robert used to be a cop. Send him in there, and he's just going to talk. He's going to say, yeah, I'm in town. I'm contracting with this company. I'm formerly, you never ever claim to be a sworn officer if you're not, even if you're retired. He's like, no, I used to be law enforcement. Now I do private security work, and they have some questions about some of their executive protection, so I've been meeting them this week, and I was supposed to meet somebody for dinner. He said it was going to be, we dropped a name. Because the guards don't, like, know the workers at a company. They're not like, oh, Steve the executive, he's in my cell phone, I'll call him. They're like, oh, yeah, I've heard of that guy, he works here. So and Rob's just being super social. He's hanging out, he's having a good time. The thing is, to make this approach, this was late in the day. We had tried so many different things, and Bobak and Rob were like, man, we really got to try something here. So we're going to attack through the lobby, we're going to send Rob in. Well, Bobak says, all right, I'm going to be in the car, and I'll be connected to the hunt pad remotely so I can message you if you get credentials and get out of there. So park the car here. And as Rob's driving in, he's like, how am I going to park the car here? It's in the middle of winter. Nobody walks across a parking. That's dumb. I'm parking in front. Get down. So Bobak's like, shit. All right, he gets down in the back seat. And he's like, all right, well, at least leave the car running. And Rob's like, it's like, no one leaves the car running. That's weird. What if I have to be in there for 10, 20 minutes? Like, they're going to say, hey, man, your car's running. What are you doing? Like, he's like, I got to go. I got to take the keys. So Bobak's like, shit, well, give me your coat. So he's under 2 coats in the back seat of his car. Rob enters the lobby. Immediately, signal drops out. This was like a super insulated building, and Bobak's functionally blind. He can't message Rob, can't do anything. He doesn't know what's happening. And as Rob's in there, there's like 3 guards walking, like they're kind of mobile guards that kind of walk around and then come back to the lobby, and 1 dude behind a desk. And we wanted to pull footage from the cameras, because it would have been this do-si-do of Rob like getting close to them, and then if you ever notice somebody who's carrying, they tend to just blade off like strong side back if anyone's near their firearm, and their badges were all on their hips. So Rob just kept trying, like, what's this this plant you have on the wall. This is interesting. My wife had a plant like this. What's it called? Oh, okay. And but he's personable. He's funny. And they didn't mind that he was in there for like 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes. It's like, eventually Rob's like, man, nothing. He's like showing the guy behind the desk. He's like, so if my guy doesn't show up, is this a good restaurant? Hoping the guy would like lean over, because that one dude had his badge clipped up here. The guy looks at it, he's like, no, that place sucks. You got to go to this place. He's like, oh, shit. So eventually, like Rob's almost in there for an hour. He's like, well, I can't just keep staying in here. He's like, all right, man, well, I'm going to dip. I'm going to try that. You said it was like a falafel stand. All right, take it easy, man. Nice to meet you. Yeah, if you go down to Flat C, I know some instructors. I'll put in a good word. And he goes to this guy. He's like, come here, you. He kind of had good rapport. He walks around the desk, just swings his bag over, and just hugs the dude. And holds it for like 2 or 3 seconds. He's like, all right, man, well, you take it easy. It was nice meeting y'all. And he just fucking dips. Probably leaving these guards like, what was that? But he gets back to the car. He starts driving out of there. He's like, that was weird at the end. But Bobbick's in the back seat. He's like, you were in there for almost an hour. I'm freezing. And Rob's like, I think I got a badge. And Bobbick's like, what? He kind of pops up out of the coats. They pull into a gas station and check. They dump the log files. And Bobbick's like, looking at the timestamps, he's like, you were in there for 48 minutes. You got one read. But who do we have? It was a guard. That was enough for those two dudes to take that whole place apart. That was the weekend of, like, I guess, it wasn't Force Awakens. It was one of the new Star Wars, like a new Star Wars picture was coming out, and all the tech workers were, like, going to the midnight showing. They were all going to go that night. So that place was dead. And they walked in, they went a side door, bam, 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 guard badges got them everywhere. That was it. And we told Bobbick in the future, we'll give him like a nice little comfy place to hang out in the back of a car. But yeah, you never know. Like, all it takes is one. Who said it earlier? Like, attackers have to get lucky once. Defenders have to get lucky repeatedly. Now, you can flip that model. We could have gotten lucky a bunch of doors, and then on one door, we could have like gotten caught, which actually happened. Not caught so much as Robert was, the next day, he was badging in, and a guard looked up from his terminal, and he's like, hey, hang on, buddy. Come over here. And Rob walks over. Of course, I belong here. They had systems where if you badged in, it would present the user ID, like it would show you the employee information, and show a photo and everything else. Now, if Rob had grabbed an employee badge, well, you're not Susan. Your hair's not that long. What's going on here? But he'd grabbed a guard badge, right? Guards are third-party contractors. And that means that they were rotating badges around. The company literally just gave them like a dozen badges and was like, here, go have fun. And all the badges just were blank for the database entry, and it was a white square. So they said, what's this badge? Looks like our badges, like our guard badges. And Rob's like, no, it's a VIP badge. I'm here just for this week. It turns off at 11:59 tonight. I'm doing some consulting. And he got lucky because another guard came around the corner. Was like, hey, Robert. He's like, oh, hey, how you doing, man? Yeah. He's like, oh, yeah, he's cool. He's a nice guy. I like this guy. The guard was like, oh, okay, special badge, I guess. Sure, why not? So you never exactly know what is going to work in your favor and what isn't. So we got time for like one more and a little wrap-up. You sure? Hanging? You're doing okay? All right. I'm not getting anybody to give me the light or throwing bricks at me, so we'll get one more. One more time. We've got servicing the doors, detailed dossier, and you don't work here. Give me a hand for servicing the doors. Give me a hand for detailed dossier, and for you don't work here. Ooh, I think that's it. I like ending it this way, actually. This was a job where we experienced our greatest non-success ever. People always ask us, how many times you got caught? People love that fucking question all the time, right? And we're like never? Like, there's never been a job where we haven't gotten in. This is legitimately a job where we got in. You're always going to find a way in. The goal is not to prevent attackers from ever getting in. There's going to be breaches of all kinds, digital, physical. The goal as a defender is how quickly can you interdict? How do you respond and react? And this was almost pitch perfect. So this was a company, not Agra exactly, as you heard earlier about Agra, but like they were in food production. They were the next step in the chain, right? Raw materials came in, processing and milling, and you're actually making little things that are going to wind up getting sent to food distributors. This was out in rural Nebraska. Small company, right? And we had done research. We had done all kind of online OSINT. We had done recon. We had cover stories. We had names. We knew companies had employees at other sites around the country. And we were sent here from that office, and this guy knows us. We had it all planned out. We were going to deploy our ESP keys, do some sniffing of badges, bounce around, encode things. We got this. Okay. This is a small town, I said, and I mean very small. This was a town of under 2,000 people. Now, the greater region had some people in the county, but the city itself was small. And this company had property like on Main Street, essentially, in that town. They had a lot of property, a lot of buildings, but, you know, it's food production. It's a very, very low, like not a huge employee base here, probably 20, 30 people on any given shift. But we said, hey, man, big city slickers rolling in, thinking we're all kings of everything we do. Small towns, man, you could put one over on those people. We're going to go on Saturday night. On the weekends, people are all watching the sports teams. They're all at the stadiums. Everyone's out at the bars through, doing whatever. No one's going to bother us. We're going to do our recon. We're going to install some ESP keys, which we did. You can actually see the glow from the ESP key inside the door there. We're going to hit them. Then maybe there's going to be some employees doing some light maintenance work on Sunday. We're going to, we're going to hopefully be able. No, this was So Friday, Saturday, get a couple credentials. If we get even one credential, copy some badges, blast through this place. Because Sunday morning, everyone's somewhere else. Everyone's either watching the NFL on the couch or they're sitting in a pew. No one's going to be on this campus. We got it. And sure enough, drove by Sunday morning. The place looks dead. We're like, oh yeah, nobody's in there. They don't have there's no smoke coming out of the things. There's no trucks coming and going. We got this. We park on Main Street, do a few walk-bys, and as Robert's walking by, he's kind of looking, and he dips into a little coffee shop on Main Street. And he came back from this coffee shop, gets in the car, he's like, this is going to be harder than we think. And we're like, why? Did you see somebody? He's like, I saw like 6 people in the coffee shop come and go in the time I was in line. Every person in the coffee shop knows everyone. It's, hey, Frankie, Bobby, how you doing, Susan? How's the kiddo? Like, everyone knows everyone in this town. To the point where people were like in line, like, oh, where are you from? What are you doing? And he's like, I'm just visiting family. Oh, what family? We probably know him. Like, it was like Rob had to just get out of there. He's like, this is going to be interesting if we run into anybody. We pulled in. We're like, all right, we could get, because the ESP key is radio-based, we could get within range of it. We instantly got, we got a couple credentials, cool, dump them, laptop, write some badges, get out of the car, let's do this. We're walking around, just checking the grounds, checking, okay, looking, are there any possible weaknesses here? All right, we could see some doors that we could get into. We're looking in maintenance spaces and getting underneath and packing and loading and trucks. There's a lot of stuff about their trucks I'm not showing you. And we made entry through a side door. Boop, get in the door. Now we're in their buildings, okay? And it's dead. Nobody's in there. We're looking through desks. We're unlocking, like lock boxes. We're looking for keys. We're doing all the stuff we usually do. We did, in fact, find a key organizer box. We're documenting that. There were some very sensitive areas that were like, all right, these are going to be last on the list. This was a DHS chemical site of interest because they do a lot of special food processing with things that are very, very controlled chemicals. Okay. And as we're just doing this, we're walking building to building. We're inside one building, actually in like the break room area. And, Bobbitt comes around. He's like, hey, somebody just pulled in. There's like, you haven't seen any employees all day, have you? Like, there's no shifts. We're like, no, nobody's on shift. He's like, well, maybe he's just checking something on like a truck and he's going to leave. We look out the window and we're like, that person's going to that building. Okay. Now he's leaving that building. Why is he walking to that building? And there's an employee clearly walking around like building to building. Like, what the frig is this guy doing? So we're looking around. We're like, he got out of that car and he parked right near our car. That's weird. And he's been going, what the hell is this? So again, we look like we belong there. We had gear with like we had gone on eBay and found like gear with their logo and stuff. Like, we belong here. If anybody comes by, we have our story straight. Like, we're from the Wyoming branch. We were sent here we're going to be here all week. We're just checking out to see we had a whole thing. I'm not going to tell you what type of machinery. We learned one of their special processing machinery companies. We learned like the PLCs on it. This guy who had gone building to building comes into the break room. He's like, hi. What are you fellas doing here? We're like, oh, Keith from Wyoming sent us here. We got we give him the whole story. Not breaking a sweat, looking normal, which again, usually is enough to sell it. If you're, somebody who's there to like steal copper you're going to run the sight of anybody. And if you know this, like if you just like, no, I belong. If you look calm and cool, they're like, well, this person's not panicking. They probably belong here. This dude was not having any of it. He's like, I know everyone in Wyoming. You wouldn't have come from Wyoming to do that. And Keith wouldn't have sent you from Wyoming. Susan would have sent you from Wyoming. And he's trying to like call Susan in Wyoming on a Sunday freaking morning. And we're like, wow, this guy is... So ultimately, we had to show him our actual authorization letter, because you carry a letter that says, this is who I'm from, this is the job, these are the executives who know. And many times, like, people see that letter, and Johnny knows this, they'll be like, oh, it's a test. And they just like hand it back to you. This dude was like pulling numbers on the letter. He's like, that's the number that, I'm not going to trust these phone numbers, but I know these people. I got them in my phone. And he's calling these people. And we're like, holy crap, bro, like, what are you doing? So it turns out this guy had worked at this one company for 37 years. And he had emotional investment in it. He literally was driving through town on a Sunday, and he saw people. He's like, what is that, people parking? And he turned around and came back downtown, and he saw us walking. He's like, I saw you guys badge into the building, and I didn't recognize. I'm like, you saw us badge in, and that wasn't enough? He's like, no, I wanted to find you. So yeah, there's the physical security side, there's electronic security, but we often don't talk enough about human security, and the people element. If you're not taking care of people in your org, if you don't make them feel appreciated and valued, you are wasting and squandering a really valuable resource. And this company, and it wasn't just this dude. Like, we eventually, he was mollified by a call to an executive. He's like, all right, I'm not going to say anything, but, you know, I'm watching you. You know, he kind of left. The next day, on Monday, we came back to, like, document everything, take better photos, give a debrief. We were, like, trying to just take our ESP keys away and clean up, and we kept getting stopped with legitimate visitor badges this time. And just be like, you don't work here. Why are you here? We're like, we're here for this thing. She's like, I don't trust that story. And when people kept taking us back to the front desk, and be like, yeah, no, they're here. They're real visitors. So, yeah, you never know what's going to pay off. And I really hope a lot of companies could take away the valuable lesson of, like, invest in your people, make your employees from the most old veterans to the youngest people there, like, make them feel appreciated. Because if people don't give a crap about the enterprise, about the company, they're not really going to, oh, who's that person? I don't recognize them. Who cares? Maybe they're stealing TVs. That's not my problem. It's not my money. So yeah, you never really know what relationships are going to pay off. But I love that story. It's a story of us not succeeding. It's a story of us, in my opinion, the company succeeding, which is what we want. Like, that is a story of a success. It's actually the best kind of success, because we got them to understand, like, this is what you have to do. You don't have to be rude. You don't tackle and punch people. You're just like, no, I'm sorry. I need to know why you're here. And you just kind of politely control the situation and escalate, and you got to resolve that interaction somehow. So not everybody has the same threats out there. I've given you a lot of stuff to chew on and think about. Threat modeling is a big thing we do with every consultation. There are different types of attackers, right? There's like unskilled, opportunistic criminals. There's some people are worried about civil unrest and so forth. Sometimes you have criminals with trade knowledge, people who have done install work for wire and cable, and like there's a pharmacy near us that occasionally gets robbed, and it means the internet goes out for the businesses on that block because somebody in this crew knocks out the junction box for Comcast in the area, and like it just kills the internet on the block, and like, oh, the pharmacy got robbed again. And there's, nation-state threat actors. There's a lot of different potential threats that an org can face depending on who they are and what they're doing. The thing is, like, if you're like, oh, I'm worried about corporate espionage, or I'm just worried about bricks through the window, like, these are all very different cases. Sometimes you're worried about your former employees. Again, be good to your people. Like, if I was a boss, I would be, like, making my employees unionize just to make sure that they're happy. But here's the thing, though. That's talking about, like, your large-scale workforce and your large landscape of like, all these attackers that might do different things, nation-states and whatever. The one that's not talked about enough, and the main reason I talk about this, is that in between, like, the smash-and-grab opportunistic criminal and the stuff that, like, I do, there's this in-between ground. And we'll just call them dedicated, untrained people with something in their craw. They have a nit to pick. And this can be somebody who works there as, like, an angry ex, or it could be someone who just thinks your company is evil, and I'm going to go in there and wreak havoc. And a lot of these people are self-taught. All the stuff I'm telling you today is probably on YouTube in one way or another. And people who have a lot of time and a grudge can spend hours and hours learning some of these quick bypass techniques. And that's what's going to get them in the building to, I don't know, spray paint graffiti or knock over desks or get into a screaming match. Or understanding this low-hanging fruit and following some real basic best practices keeps that person at bay, mostly. We'll run down them really quick, and I know you're being really cool chilling with me like this. So your doors, right? Yes, force-resistant, proper doors and locks, because the boot to the door is still a very common attack. You understand, again, I said, when you get all the hardware in the box, so you install all the hardware in the box. You get a really nice grade 1 deadbolt here, and yes, this is a nice little cover plate. That's not a security plate. It will come with a security plate or strike box, and that gets mounted first. That's a heavy-duty piece of steel with big screws. You put them all the way through the jack stud into the king stud in the framing, right? If you have windows, there are ways to make your windows shatterproof or shatter-resistant. Laminated glass will have, little etching in it saying who it's from. 3M makes their, I guess it's S140 film, which instead of just having your window shatter, if you put laminate over it, you can't prevent the window from breaking. It's still going to be safety glass, but the window won't disappear. So this is a very good thing if you're in an area where you're worried about smash and grab. What a cool job. Just to have, this guy goes home with no stress, just gets to beat up on stuff every day. Just, F you, Dad, I made something of myself. We talked about hinges. If the knuckle of the hinge is facing outside, you don't want those leafs to become separated. You can get a security hinge or a captive pin hinge. All those bypassing things that I was telling you about. We talked about the mitigations. Install your mechanism correctly. Make sure the latch is engaging properly. Make sure you use the hardware that's supposed to be with it. Maybe you add a little hardware on top of it. Maybe you shroud the inside handle if you're worried about under-door attacks, or if you're in hotels, throw that towel back there.
Okay,
Make sure the
we have the
damn door
world's
actually
worst door
closes
closer
correctly.
and door
We've seen this
fitment.
video. It's horrible. Yeah, all of these terrible videos. This is, again, check your door at your hotel. See if it'll do that. Let me know. I'm not on Twitter anymore, but let me know on Mastodon if it does that. Your keys. Try not to let your keys just be floating out there into the world. If you have the budget for it, getting manipulation-resistant locks with keys that are very copy-resistant, that's a good thing. Sometimes keys have sidebars with extra cuts. Sometimes you have keys with little floating interactive elements. There are keys with magnets in them that are very, very robust against illicit copies. But complexity goes up, price goes up. Most of my clients, like my house doesn't use magnet keys or anything. It would be fun, but no, I don't use that. I have pretty much basic locks that are hard to manipulate. They are very, very pick and bump resistant. You can pin up. In a residential environment, you don't need hundreds of dollars of locks on your doors. I would recommend, though, you keep your damn keys out of sight. And your credentials, too, right? Your little boopy fobs, keep them away. This is a legit factory one. These are not. These are fobs that can just take a cloned copy of someone else's credential if you get near them. This might be a bridge too far for some of you, but if you do have hard-to-copy keys, which we do, I stamp my keys with numbers, and then I just put it in KeyPass. So I know, key number 1 is in my wallet, key number 2 belongs to my wife, key number 3 is with the neighbors. And I can just kind of track my keys, and if somebody gives me a key back, I'm pretty sure they haven't copied it. Electronic monitoring has become cheap and accessible. It's something that I would invest in if you're really concerned about, again, we are gone all the time. Having electronic monitoring is something you might fit into your model. Now, your threat model can be different types of threats. Ring and Nest in particular, they love giving your data to the police. We do not like to use those in my friend group at all. And Simply Safe's kind of a pile of poo. Don't use them either. But yeah, I love Wise. I love Eufy. Ubiquity's lovely, but they're very, very expensive. But be aware of, are you giving your data to other threat actors that you don't know about that you're giving your data to? I don't really trust the police a lot with my personal data. I don't want them to have it, which is why we have cameras, and even the ones I like, the ones inside of our homes and properties, they're on hard power switches, which are powered off when we're home. If we're gone, sure, we'll flip them on. My hotel room has a camera in it right now. It's a hidden camera. I know if someone came and went in my hotel because I've got a little camera that looks like a cell phone charger, and it will alert me. It'll say, hey, somebody's in that room right now, bro. Speaking of hotels, you saw it briefly at the beginning. I'll mention it. I love this. A little retired couple makes it. It's called the Super Grip Lock or Super Grip Strap. Remember those thumb turns that you have to have a thumb turn on the inside if you're going to have a deadbolt? You can jam the thumb turn in place. It's a heavy strap with Velcro, and regardless of how the door is architected, you can find some configuration as you play with the strap to get it to wrap back around on itself, and nobody is getting in. Nobody's using a key or even an underdoor tool to pop that open. But if you're on the inside, like, yes, I can lean on it with all my weight. I can't get this to unlock. But if I got to get out, I can just pop it and go. Now, it's a hotel. It has that night lock. You might say, yeah, but they have the night locks. Why don't you just use those? Yeah, well, every hotel has one of these. If it's on the hotel door, they have a way to get into that hotel room. So this is called a lock jockey. Yeah, I don't trust those at all. You can see it in use right here. The door pops open if someone has a key. Slip the lock jockey in, bounce the door on it, bam, that's open. So yeah, deadbolt strap. I like it very, very much. There's the lock jockey for you. So to conclude, I didn't actually know if I was going to make it here at all. That my schedule is nuts. I really wanted to be here. Everyone who worked hard to get me here, I really want to thank you for that. I don't know when the next time is I'll be able to make it here. This is a different, small note about security, but like, you know, I rearranged flights and I drove in, and that was like, oh, it's hard for me to get here. Well, that's just travel logistics. That's not really hard. That doesn't make me unsafe. My friend Erin has a whole map about our country and places that are not safe for loved ones of mine, and there's a lot of places I'm not going to be going anymore because it feels wrong of me to go places where my loved ones can't. So this might be the last time you see me here for a little while. So I'm glad I got to say hi. But I love sharing this information. It's important to me to get this message out. And that's why I'm happy to be here, even under these circumstances, right? Like, I get messages saying, hey, you know what? You saved someone's life. I saw some of your talks. I built like common keys on a key ring. We had a woman call us, and then we got there, and then she wasn't answering. We didn't know what to do. I looked at it. Oh, boom, Door King, 16120 key. Popped the door open. She's in cardiac dysrhythmia, but I treated her right there on the kitchen floor. We joked with her the whole way to the hospital. Yay. Again, like first responders, if you have anybody here who has first responder friends, show them talks about this kind of stuff. They will be able to get into properties smoother, easier, and faster. This one, she's like, yep, saw a Knox box. Oh my God, the Knox box was empty. It didn't have the credentials. Our key didn't help. But I looked around, was able to pop in anyway. This was on Thanksgiving. She was like, yep, somebody hit they didn't hit any arteries, but they're going to need some purple stuff to get that stain out. So yeah, thanks for teaching all of us, paramedics moving around faster. This guy, his like family, you know, his nephew's in there. He's like, oh yeah, he's an EMT. We go up to this building, senior care facility. They usually buzz us in. Nobody was answering. They got a linear box, and he knew 222343. He popped that open. Then he's like literally armpit warmed a little thing, swiped in, get right into the lobby, got some brownie points. So I love hearing from people. I've heard from people downrange who were like, yeah, we had to use like your entry techniques, and instead of breaching a door and destroying like somebody's little like Ville, we were able to get in quietly and not alert people we were getting in if we have to do a sweep for our EOD teams. Like, I'm very proud when people say things like that. Yeah, breach can take longer. It takes longer to set up. It takes longer to clean up. Like constantly, you know, we've got all these engine companies that showed up on a job, and the Knox box only had one set of keys, and they were trying to get around all these big buildings to like clear the alarms. They were looking like they don't know, is there a fire, is there not? Because electronic monitoring these days sends first responders all the time to buildings, and there's no secondary signs. They're like, is there smoke, is there not, what the hell do we do? Do you take an axe to the door? So being able to just use literally these are all like $10 tools on the internet. A hook, a little door shim, exploit the latches. These guys rolled through a whole building, and he's like, this saves thousands of dollars. And at the end of the day, that's why we do what we do in security. We're not here, even though people think of security as like a cost sink, we are here to save dollars and save lives, and if we're doing our job right, it's not always visible to our clients, but that's the impact we should be having. And I will end it just by saying that I can give you a list of like, here's hardware to do on your buildings, but the best protections of all, and you all know this, we've learned this during the pandemic, we've learned this during any times of crisis. The best protections are having good community. And it's not just one person that's going to solve any problem. It's not one person who has the skill to make anything better. Coming together in events, sharing knowledge, making friends, and being part of a community that checks on each other, that's what drags us into tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, safe and secure as best we can be. So I thank you for letting me talk about this. I thank you for not minding that we went a couple minutes long and we had some AV things. How was it? I was kind of flying blind with no notes. Did this work out? All right. Thank you very much. We are over time. I will take one or two hastily shouted loud questions, or we can go to the bar. Yes? Why is Simply Safe poo? One, your barometer is it advertised on a podcast? And if something is on podcast or YouTube, it's probably garbage. The biggest thing, Simply Safe relies on a lot of RF, mostly in the 2.4 gigahertz range. It's very jammable. It's spoofable. They're heartbeat signals. We can glitch out Simply Safe in a lot of ways. They're base stations. All the firmware I've ever seen, Drew has attacks for that. We literally use Simply Safe in our alarm classes at Red Team Alliance. It's like our model of like, this is an alarm you can stomp all over. Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome. Do you use Simply Safe? I won't ask you that. That's all right. Yes?
What's the legality and morality of getting into Knox boxes to get into the building?
Really cool question. So what is the legality surrounding getting into Knox boxes? These are the Knox brand, along with Supra and a few others, but Knox is the biggest player. They are those rapid entry boxes on the outside of buildings, designed for first responders. First responders will have a key that will typically open the Knox box, which should have other keys for the building to let them in. I'm not a lawyer. I did stay at Holiday Inn Express last night, so best answer. I don't know of any criminal code at the state level that would prohibit getting in a Knox box. I do know people who have done this as an exploit. I know people on our team who literally, when they were working for, they were working for the government, they had a target and they rented an office building in the same town. And they literally paid for a lease for 1 month. They asked the city to install a Knox box and they sledgehammered it off the wall. And then they decoded the lock, made a key. Now, Knox boxes can be wired for an alarm circuit, which never happens, but they can be. So be careful if you're exploiting a Knox box. But the biggest thing is technically, that's probably going to be a key that somewhere in some municipal code, it probably says, this key should only be possessed by the AHJ, the authority having jurisdiction, usually the fire chief or somebody. And possession of this key by anyone else is not allowed. And if the local municipality has adopted that code into their criminal code, there might be some parallel jurisdiction there going on. Again, not a lawyer. I'm aware of people who have exploited Knox boxes and not gone to court. That's the best I got. Anecdata for the win. Anyone else? Or are we going to go have drinks and eat? I think that's it. You can tell me I'm wrong about everything on the internet. I was happy to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deviant, for showing that students will actually stay after class.